Alright. Hey everybody, welcome back to Conscientious Omnivore. My name is Pal. Going to be doing a live stream tonight. I'm going to try to go through things really quick, so I'm not really going to be following the chat as much as I try to do lately, because I really got to get to bed. I'm tired. But I think this is really important, and I want to get through a couple of things that have been in the news the past few days. So there have just been crazy reports about all sorts of claims about red meat not being so bad for you, and eating even unprocessed or processed meats, including things like bacon and things like that, which are known carcinogens. That even that's fine, and it doesn't mean that you're going to be unhealthy and all this kind of crazy stuff. And so I want to address these and some other things that I have come across the past few days, which I just think are completely crazy to claim. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about tonight. So welcome to everybody, and hope everybody's good. Whoever's in the chat, if you can just let me know, make sure my audio's okay and you guys can hear me okay. I know the computer fan's there. I haven't been able to fix that problem yet. But anyway, let's get into it. Hopefully you guys will find this interesting. Let me share my screen here. And I got the wrong window open already. Here we go. I'm going to start with something a little bit different. Recently I had a old friend post this link to me and asked my opinion about it. And I read through this article. It's written by a lady called Georgia Edie, and it was interesting, but basically, at first I didn't think much of it. I just thought this was a kind of, typical article that people kind of send you when they know you're vegan and they're concerned about your nutrients and things like that. And basically, it's making the claim that the brain needs animal fat, and how are people able to live a healthy life if they're not eating animals. Specifically, this focuses a lot about DHA, EPA, basically all the omega-3 fatty acids that are critical for brain function, and a whole bunch of other things related to healthy bodily function. And they basically make the claim that you pretty much can't get enough DHA from the conversion from ALA, which you can get from plants, and that you're not going to be able to make enough EPA, and it goes through kind of like the whole thing and explains it. Now, I made kind of a response to this, just as it was a Facebook post that the friend asked about this, and I kind of replied back, and then I said I would do a more thorough response when I got a chance. But basically, I think it's just kind of a weird thing. Like, it's a combination of like natural is better though, and a few other kind of like typical I would say tired kind of myths surrounding plant-based eating. It's actually quite easy to get enough omega-3 fatty acids for most people if you're eating a variety of whole foods, especially if you're including things like walnuts and flax seeds in your regular meals throughout the day. And basically, I think there's quite a bit of misinformation in this article and scaremongering. Hey Jen, thanks for joining. And I just think it was like really kind of I don't know what the right word is for it, but it was like the article was suspicious to me. I'm like, yeah, this person seems very heavily like anti plant-based diet, anti-vegan. And sure enough, I started poking around, just looking for other articles by this lady, and it's on Psychology Today, so it kind of seems like pretty legit. And I looked up her page on Psychology Today. It shows that she's got a degree. She's worked in different hospitals. She's worked at Cambridge Hospital, Harvard University, Smith College. She writes articles for Psychology Today, for DietDoctor.com. She has her own website. And then I, kind of started looking at it, and she's supposedly cured her own health problems with her unorthodox diet and restored her health with a low. She moved supposedly from a low-fat, high-fiber plant-based diet to a carnivore diet. So that's exactly what I wanted to talk about next. You can see the kind of articles that she writes on Psychology Today. She's talking about how paleo is good for mental health. She's talking about how low carb is good for mental health. She's talking about the carnivore diet for mental health. And if you actually go on this article, The Carnivore Diet for Mental Health, it's right here, you'll see that she talks about how she's been on the carnivore diet since 2018, so a little over a year, I think, is what she went on it. I don't remember exactly. But basically, this is another person who has been influenced by Mikhaila Peterson. If anybody doesn't know Mikhaila Peterson, she's the daughter of Jordan Peterson. And basically, he's kind of, I don't know, you can have your own opinion about him, but he's kind of like a controversial person, and he was on the Joe Rogan podcast and talked about how he went on the carnivore diet after his daughter cured herself of all sorts of ailments using the carnivore diet. And if anybody hasn't seen, there's been really great videos put out by Vegan Gains as well as Michelle Lowe. Shout out to both of them. Basically debunking both Mikhaila and Jordan Peterson's claims about how they've been cured, especially of their mental illnesses, by following the carnivore diet. It's complete rubbish, and I recommend checking out those videos. But basically, this lady, Edie, whatever her name is, Georgia Edie, she's giving talks at the Boulder Carnivore Convention this year, talking about how great the carnivore diet is. I actually watched this video. Well, I watched most of it, actually. I didn't watch it all, but it's just full of the tired, cliche, kind of like typical anti-vegan nonsense. Plants don't have complete proteins. You have to be super careful, super, difficult to get enough protein on a vegan diet. You have to take the, careful supplementation and blah, 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 blah. Just so tiring. Like, I'm not even going to try to bother like going through and debunking, this person in detail. It's just the same stuff rehashed by another person who's been just completely duped. I don't know if, if she's doing this for money, or for that matter, I don't know if any of these people are doing it for money. I think with people like Mikhaila Peterson or Jordan Peterson, or any of these people who supposedly have these very serious health issues, including this lady too, Georgia Edie, they may be doing things out of desperation. And there's been a lot of talk, I think by very reasonable doctors, talking about the carnivore diet and how it might actually help, because really it's kind of like a crazy elimination diet, right? So like there could be things that the person is doing and eating certain things that actually, when you get rid of that stuff, it alleviates those problems. So people might be having all sorts of issues with dairy, for example, or processed foods or junk foods, including plant foods. I'm not saying that wouldn't be the case. And when you get rid of those things, because you're on an elimination diet like that, you get rid of those problems, and then you feel better. But again, you have to look at the long-term health effects, and like many of the doctors criticizing this diet have said, what is this doing to people's cholesterol levels? What is it doing to their arterial health? What is it doing to their diabetes risks? All this kind of stuff. So even people like Sean Baker, he's already diabetic with his diet. So just crazy stuff. I just did the video previous to this where I was talking about these people and their claims, including Sean Baker, but just absolutely crazy that some publication that tries to seem like it's a legitimate kind of resource, like this Psychology Today site, would have somebody like this who's promoting such a dangerous diet, and basically kind of trying to tell people about the wonderful benefits of the carnivore diet. I mean, it's just absolutely insane. Welcome to everybody else. Hey, Leon. Hey, Angela. Glad you guys are on. So, I'm going to try to move quickly because I really do have to get to bed. But, I just wanted to kind of point out here on her page here where she's talking about the benefits of the carnivore diet. She's specifically calling out, the wonderful work of Dr. Baker, and all this kind of stuff, and all the wonderful testimonials on Meat Heals, his website. And if you just kind of look at actually I did a video where I had a guest on. I had Tim from the Ethologos Twitter handle. If anybody's not familiar with that, go check out my previous live stream with him, where we talked a lot about the Meat Heals website, and we just explain how it's a complete trash like thing. And I mean, people are they just don't understand the way science works. They don't understand that, like, one anecdote which is non-verified, non-reviewed by doctors, or it's not even a case study. It's not even like in a clinical setting or anything. People can claim whatever they want. You can make a website and write anything you want and take pictures, random people from the internet, and most likely, you would never be found out. So something like meatheals.com is a complete joke. But the fact that you have a page like Psychology Today promoting this lady's articles and her claims about the carnivore diet, and then referring to meatheals.com, it's almost like it's giving credence to such a crappy website where it has no kind of validity to it whatsoever. But they're almost giving it validity by featuring it here. So if you look at the Meat Heals website, if anybody hasn't seen it, or if you haven't seen my live stream with Tim, it's basically just a bunch of testimonials written up by, people. Some of them give their full name, some of them don't. Some of them put pictures, some of them don't. And they say about how they were on all these drugs or whatever, and had bad health or overweight, and now they've lost weight, etc., etc. And the only thing I'm going to say about this is, again, it's just anecdotes. We don't even know if it's true or not. And in fact, Tim even succeeded in putting up a bogus, testimonial, and it got published. So you just know that there is no kind of like checking or any kind of like background checking on these people. Like, people can claim whatever they want, and we have no idea what kind of things they have to gain from this. Maybe it's all animal farmers that are posting these things. I don't know. And again, some of these people might be legit, some of them might have legit stories, but again, what is it going to do to their health long term, and et cetera, et cetera. The other thing that Tim pointed out to me, which was kind of crazy and funny in a weird way, in a scary way, was that if you go to the About section of meatheals.com, they basically are telling you that, like, look, these are just personal stories and blah, blah, blah. It's not intended to be interpreted as medical advice. And then they're saying that you should discuss your diet with physicians or medical providers. And then they tell you that for scientific resources on carnivory, see Just Meat. And when you go to Just Meat, this is a scientific, according to the Meat Heals website, list of resources about carnivory. And one of the things that just crack me up is, again, Georgia Edie is listed here as well, the lady that I was just talking about. But then also they give you wonderful references like Frank Tufano, Sean Baker, Sverige, and Carnival. So, like, do I need to go into any more detail than this? Or, like, can anybody take any of these kinds of things seriously? This lady's saying that cholesterol doesn't have any kind of negative health impacts, dietary cholesterol consumption. All of these people are cholesterol deniers. They are anti-science. They are crazy people. I mean, Sverige has literally just done the craziest stuff. I've done a debunking video of him. I've done a kind of cheeky debunking of Frank Tufano. Sean Baker, I mean, these guys are jokes. Like, you cannot take these people seriously. And the fact that this is kind of listed as a scientific, resource it's an absolute joke. Carnival, I've debated him several times. I mean, watch those debates. Tell me who you think came out on top. Ken Berry, I mean, watch the videos Foot Soldier has done about Ken Berry, please. Like, I can't understand how anybody could take anything from these people seriously. But moving on. Next up, I came across this article. Somebody shared this. I think it was Vegan Punk on Twitter. I follow him as well. And it's basically an article about this lady, Joanna Blythman, I don't know how to pronounce her name. She's basically saying that going vegan would be disastrous for Scotland and lead to food shortages and hunger. And she's a award-winning food writer. She's written 7 books about the food chain, diet, and ethical farming. Claims that calls to phase out the meat and dairy industries are not supported by science. And she goes on and on. And basically, I read this and I'm just thinking, like, oh, my goodness, my head hurts. I mean, I just did the live stream where I showed you guys the wonderful study that just came out I think it was from either Harvard or Yale, I can't remember, maybe it was Harvard. But just watch that live stream I just did recently. It basically showed that if the UK, which the last time I checked, I think Scotland is part of the UK, if the UK abandoned animal agriculture, they would be actually able to be self-sufficient and return huge swaths of land that are currently used for grazing animals and raising food for animals, which are then killed and eaten by people. You could return that land, rewild it, save 9 years worth of CO2 emissions for the country, and be self-sufficient in food. But then you have this lady who's basically a blogger and a book writer, and she's making the opposite claim. It's just like mind-boggling. Like, how can people even give credence to this? Like, why is this even on a website? Like, don't the people have any kind of journalistic integrity? Don't they have any kind of, like, I just don't even understand it. Like, don't they do any kind of due diligence on this person to ask, like, does she even have any credentials to talk about this kind of stuff whatsoever? I don't know. It's so upsetting. And then if you look her up, like on Twitter, for example, you'll see that she's just like constantly pushing out low carb, keto diet, meat eating kind of propaganda stuff. She's like just unabashedly, sending out all this kind of stuff. Here's some grazing sheep and how the regenerative farming and, people are attacking red meat, and now they're attacking chicken, and how it's so great for you. And here, it's the crop plant food production that's driving this extinction with pesticides and tillage, not livestock production. Like, yeah, livestock production requires a huge amount of plant production to feed the animals. It's like basic logical stuff. Like, these people are incredible. I just don't understand how anybody could take this person seriously. And if you just like look through, I mean, she's literally pushing like, meat and dairy propaganda. It's insane. Like, here's another great one. Time for a review. The destroying your health makes you immoral and ruining the planet claims are false. Now, I'm sorry. The last time I checked, impregnating an animal without its consent and taking away its babies so that you can steal their milk and kill the baby if it's a boy and do the same thing to the baby if it's a girl. The last time I checked, that's pretty immoral. If you're not sure about that, watch my video that I did about February dairy and the ethics of milk and dairy consumption and production, and look at the environmental impact of it. I did a separate video about that too. I mean, the fact that this person can be retweeting this stuff and sending out these kinds of things, it's a very, very, very biased person, very clearly a like she's got an agenda. Now, again, I don't know if she's getting paid for this. I don't know. She's tweeting from another person who's also keto, low carb, all these kinds of like things. And this brings me to the topic at hand, the main thing I wanted to talk about, which is the new, news that has been plastered all over the past few days that new guidelines say continue eating red meat and even processed meat. And these people are pushing it. And if you look through just, like Google News or any kind of news thing, just type in red meat, you'll see article after article after article the last few days coming out, basically telling people like, yeah, no, it's cool. Like, just eat all the red meat you want, eat all the processed meat you want, it's cool. Or everything in moderation, or like, yeah, 3-4 times a week is fine, that kind of message. And this is what I really want to kind of focus on right now. So, if anybody hasn't seen the articles, I mean, I'm kind of surprised because it's been just literally all over everything. But look at it right here. Fox News, go eat a steak. People are literally taking this advice and they're doing damage. They're actually harming people by giving them this crazy stuff. So what I want to encourage everybody to do is, if you haven't read this article, I want everybody to go in and read the full thing. I'm not going to go through every part of it, but I want to talk about it a little bit in detail. The Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine is the organization, I believe it was created by Dr. Neil Barnard, but if not created by him, I know he's the president. But basically, he's awesome. If anybody's not familiar with his work, go check out Dr. Barnard's books, videos, all this kind of stuff. The man's amazing, and he's been featured in several of the kind of big vegan documentaries as well. But he has put out, or they have put out, the Physicians Committee, PCRM, have put out this article in response to the this study that was released in the peer-reviewed journal, the Annals of Internal Medicine. So it's basically they're basically saying, yeah, it's bunk science, and it's clickbait, and it's cancer-causing clickbait, because when you follow the advice to eat more red meat and processed meats especially, it is a known carcinogen. It's not even in question anymore, and they are literally telling people to go and do something that is going to give them cancer. So it's just crazy stuff. So basically this article, he goes through the background of kind of the major studies that were reviewed by this article that got published, and it talks about what the actual findings of those studies were. And you can see that from right here, processed meat, bacon, sausage, hot dogs, ham, etc. was classified in 2015 by the World Health Organization as a Group 1 carcinogen. That's the highest level, so that's like a known carcinogen. Evidence of cancer risk is clear and convincing for colorectal cancer, and the WHO report also observed associations between red and processed meat consumption in stomach, pancreatic, and prostate cancers. Processed meat is also associated with breast cancer risk, among other health problems. And in 2017, the American Medical Association called for the elimination of processed meat from hospital menus, as did the American College of Cardiology as a result of that. And then basically, he points out that in 2014, this same publication, the Annals of Internal Medicine, they posted an article that led the Time magazine to put a swirl of butter on its cover with the headline, "Eat Butter." So they've had a history of doing this, and they are doing it again. It's basically for views. It's basically to try to bump up their publication, and I guess it's kind of like this, any kind of news coverage is better than no news coverage, and people find out about their publication and subscribe to it or whatever. So basically he starts talking about who wrote the article, what did they say, and what you will find is that they did a bunch of kind of half-truths or distortions of the data, or they kind of weighted the data in a weird way. And what they did was they failed to kind of mention that a lot of these studies, they had statistically significant findings. They did have, lower rates of cancer among the people who ate the least, red meat or processed meat. They did have lower cardiovascular events, death from cancer, death from cardiovascular events, all this kind of stuff. It's broken down here in the article. I would definitely encourage everybody to check it out, read through the whole thing. It talks about not just epidemiological studies, which is often the criticism that these keto and carnivore people will say, is that these are just food questionnaires or whatever. That's not true. Many of these were actually randomized clinical trials, as this points out right here. The researchers summarized the results of only one randomized trial, the Women's Health Initiative, a study designed to test the effects of modest diet changes rather than the effects of reducing meat consumption. Nonetheless, participants did reportedly reduce meat intake slightly, while the authors of the Annals paper discounted the results of the study, WHI. In fact, after 19.6 years of follow-up, the intervention group had a 16% reduction for breast cancer, followed by death, and a 13% reduction in diabetes requiring insulin, both of which were statistically significant. So they did all sorts of kind of weird weighting and fudging of the data, basically. And there was an interesting thing here where they point out, that this guy, Johnson, concluded that the benefits of reducing meat consumption that had been identified were small and uncertain, and that many individuals are reluctant to reduce their meat consumption despite their risks. Writing, the panel believed that for the majority of individuals, the desirable effects, a potential lowered risk for cancer, and cardiometabolic outcomes associated with reducing meat consumption probably do not outweigh the undesirable effects. Impact on quality of life, burden of modifying cultural and personal meal preparation and eating habits. Johnson did not take this argument to mean that there was little point in encouraging individuals to reduce their meat intake. Instead, he offered guidelines encouraging the continued consumption of these products. Specifically, he wrote, the panel suggests that adults continue current unprocessed red meat consumption, weak recommendation, low uncertainty evidence. Similarly, the panel suggests adults continue current processed meat consumption. So this is just mind-boggling. The panelists were not identified in the report. The paper notes that the recommendation was not unanimous. Of the 14 panelists selected by Johnson to opine on his position, 3 dissented, calling for reducing meat intake. In its publicity materials, the journal reinforced this message. In advance of the publication, it issued a press release with the headline, "New Guidelines, No Need to Reduce Red or Processed Meat Consumption for Good Health." And of course, there's many people criticizing them, including the PCRM and other doctors, and they're actually trying to sue to get basically this retracted, because they're saying it is it's a health hazard, it's a public health hazard. And yeah, it's crazy. There's also this interesting point here. I think this was it. Hold on. Oh yeah, one of the Annals article's contributors, John Siebenpiper of the University of Toronto, called on the Annals to stop publication. Although he had participated in the analysis, he believed that the conclusions were mistaken and joined the True Health Initiative's appeal to the editor. Dr. Siebenpiper wrote, "As a co-author of one of the papers and a physician, I share the concern that the public may view this series of systematic reviews and meta-analysis and resulting clinical practice guidelines as commissioned or endorsed by the American College of Physicians. Our review of dietary patterns low in red and processed meat showed associated reductions in the most important outcomes to patients and public health: all-cause mortality, cardiovascular mortality, and cancer mortality. Despite this finding, the recommendation from the guidelines paper, of which I was neither a part nor was I invited to review as a co-author of one of the reviews, was that adults continue consuming red and processed meat. I completely oppose this recommendation and worry about the lasting damage to public and planetary health." And this was one of the people who was involved in the actual study. So crazy stuff. They break it down: what's wrong, missing data, problems with the analyses, and guessing about reluctance to change. I think this is the main thing I want to focus on as well. These guys are basically taking the view that, reducing red meat and processed meat may, lower your chance of getting these illnesses, dying from all these horrible cancers or heart disease and what have you. But people really like doing what they do. They don't want to be all stressed out and worry about I shouldn't eat this because it's unhealthy, because that will cause them stress, or they don't want to have social anxiety because they don't want to eat that stuff around their friends or whatever, their family. I don't want to have to tell grandma that I'm not going to eat her meatloaf, that kind of thing. And it's people are just crazy that they're going to assume that instead of somebody being informed of the truth, and then they could make their own decision about, okay, whether I care about my health or not, and if I just want to keep doing it or not. He's making the decision for people, because he's out and out telling people go and keep doing what you're doing, it's fine. So it's crazy. I think, there was one line that I wanted to read here. Yeah. It was basically, despite the massive increase in popularity of meat substitutes in recent years, the authors estimated that cultural attachment to meat is too great to be influenced by healthful recommendations. Were that the case, the authors could have concluded there is no benefit to encouraging people to reduce meat intake, but they went further and encouraged the public to continue current unhealthful dietary practices despite their associations with cancer and other risks. If guidelines reinforcing meat eating are applied also to children and to people who are unaware of meat's risks, the opportunity to help these populations learn healthful eating habits is forfeited. I couldn't agree more, especially with kids in schools. I mean, they are fed these cancer-causing processed meats on a daily basis in many schools, and it is just insane that that is going on. So again, here critics have questioned whether the Annals articles are mere clickbait, published in anticipation of a media frenzy, as happened in 2014 when they did the butter story. The journal will have to speak for itself. However, publishing tantalizing articles that lead to press controversy can influence a journal's impact factor, which is crucial to a journal's dominance in the competitive publishing environment, analogous to Nielsen ratings for television stations. So basically, yeah, you can make up your own mind. I think it's clearly a clickbait kind of, story. They want people to go and check out their stupid publication. They should be ashamed of themselves, quite frankly. Abundant evidence has shown the health risks of red and processed meat. Despite their limitations, these new studies have indicated these same risks, suggesting that consumption of meat, red and processed meats should be discouraged. The contrary guidelines offered by these publications are inappropriate. to the extent they are publicized, they are likely to harm public health efforts. And we already see that because, like I showed you guys, the news articles are all over this stuff. I mean, people love hearing good news about their bad habits, just like the vegan doctors have said, and that is what is happening here. So, I haven't breathed in a while. I'm going to switch back to the webcam here, and I'm going to go through questions or comments and see what you guys think about all this. Okay, let's see. Get a swig of water. Oh, nice. You guys have tried the Beyond Burger. I haven't seen it really here in Hungary. There's one vegan place that they were doing the Beyond Meat burger patties, but I didn't get a chance to go try it. And you can't buy it in stores here. Okay. You guys are funny. Okay. Yeah, Angela says it's a stupid article. I mean, seriously, these things just, they hurt my brain when I read them sometimes. Yeah, so Angela's saying they're paid and they do not care. It's very possible. I certainly wouldn't put it past these people. I mean, a lot of them do actually sell kind of meal plans or kind of like dietary recommendations or one-on-one coaching or whatever. I mean, even Michaela Peterson has been doing this. So it's certainly possible that they're just looking at like some kind of financial, vested interest. And if you look through the Meat Heals website, you'll see that a lot of the people posting these testimonials, they then have some kind of website of their own that they're promoting, like some kind of health, website. So it's like I think there's a very clear financial incentive there. Let's see. I will add the links to all the stories in the description afterward, Angela. No problem. Proud vegan. Hey, as far as I can make out, ketosis is just something that happened in times of food shortage. Why would anyone want to recreate that? Why would they think that is good? Absolutely, couldn't agree more. I was actually in ketosis a long time ago, back when I was still living in the States, a long time ago, many years ago. I was on the Atkins diet, and I can say without a doubt, being in ketosis absolutely sucks. Your breath stinks, your urine stinks. I felt horrible. I mean, my mood was terrible. Like, I just was constantly agitated. It's absolutely a terrible feeling. And yeah, you lose a lot of weight fast, but again, what are you doing to your health long term? And what are you doing to your kidneys, your liver, all this kind of stuff, filtering all the ketones? It's just horrible. Angela says, I go into ketosis all the time as an intermittent faster. Well, you can definitely do vegan keto. A lot of people do. And supposedly that's got certain benefits, especially for certain kind of illnesses. But I think for just generally healthy people, I don't think it's a good thing to be in ketosis. I've actually had some pretty interesting interviews that I've seen with Dr. Clapper, where he talks about some fasting kind of treatments that he's done with really sick patients and stuff like that. I'm sure that in a clinical setting, especially with somebody with his experience, there I'm sure could be really great benefits to doing something like that. But again, just look at kind of like all these idiots online, like doing all these kind of like crazy fasting, starvation diets basically, and then claiming all sorts of crazy stuff about veganism hurting them. I mean, I just think like that should be a wake-up call to anybody, and you should really, really be careful with what you're doing as far as fasting goes, and make sure that you're still getting overall enough calories. Certainly, I think there could be benefit, especially like, to just some kind of like, okay, I fast one day a month or a couple days a month, like, okay, fine. But when people are not eating for, many, many days in a row, I think that's clearly bad and bad on the body. So that's my view on that. But I think certainly if you're just kind of, doing it every once in a while as some kind of like, I don't know, like overall diet plan where you're still looking at making sure you're getting enough everything, I think that could be fine. Look up Jason Fung, Dr. Jason Fung. It's fasting ketosis stops type 2 diabetes in its tracks. Yeah, I haven't heard of that guy. I'll check it out too. Proud Vegan says, yep, I did the 5-2 for years, but causing it by consuming animal products now. Yeah, I agree with that. Generally says, yeah, most is people wanting to lose weight and keep killing animals. Yeah, I kind of think that is a big part of it. Jen, you're right. It's just people just want to be able to eat those kind of like comfort foods that they've gotten used to eating, and they just want to believe that they can keep eating steak and hamburgers and that it's somehow the bun that's killing them. And I mean, it's just insane. Not that I recommend the bun, because it probably is actually like highly processed and probably unhealthy. But anyway, Angela agrees she wouldn't do it with eating animals. Yep, there's a great documentary called The Science of Fasting. Intermittent fasting seems great in many circumstances. I wouldn't doubt that. I just think like a lot of people abuse fasting and then make all sorts of crazy claims about veganism when it has nothing to do with veganism. Best thing about fasting, breakfast. Yeah, Jen, that's the way I kind of look at it. I haven't eaten anything all night. I want to have my oats and fruit in the morning. Oh, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Angela. Thanks. Well, yeah. I mean, people really they literally make that claim. I mean, I saw the video that I actually referred to in my previous video about Sean Baker. He goes to the In-N-Out and I think he gets like 16 meat patties without the bun, and he literally says that in that article, or in that interview, I should say, in that video. He's like, yeah, people don't realize that it's not the burgers that are killing them. It's the bun and the shakes and the fries. And it's like, oh my God, like these. It's just like, how can people listen to these, like, I don't know, gurus, and it's just crazy. So yeah, anyway, I mean, that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm gonna have all the links in the description in a moment after the live stream's done. So check out those articles, but especially I really, really recommend everybody read through the whole response from the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, Dr. Neil Barnard. That response is just absolute fire. Check it out. Like, just totally slams this report, and you'll get to be able to really see kind of like how, these reports are not based on science. They're not based on good nutritional information. They're basically written by people who have a clear agenda to try to somehow assuage people's kind of like, oh yeah, you can just keep eating meat, keep eating bacon, it's fine. It's not going to do anything bad to you, when the science clearly says otherwise, and it will harm you. And another thing that I'll just end on there is that a lot of people don't realize that it's not just like, you're going to eat bacon every day of your life and you'll definitely get cancer. Like, you might be lucky. You might be the same kind of person who could smoke a pack of cigarettes every day for the rest of your life and not die from lung cancer. Like, it's not guaranteed that you're going to get cancer. That's not the point. The point is that it's a known carcinogen. Not everybody who's exposed to asbestos gets cancer. Not everybody who smokes gets cancer. Not everybody who touches, some radioactive material gets cancer. There could be a lot of other things that contribute to it, but it's not disputed that radioactive materials cause cancer. It's not disputed that, asbestos causes cancer. Like, just because you personally aren't going to die from touching it once doesn't mean that it's not a carcinogen. It's the same thing with smoking. Like, but all these like carnivore people just want to be like, look, they're saying eating bacon is as bad as cancer, and the actual risk is much lower, and blah blah blah. Okay, well, maybe it's lower, but it's still a carcinogen. So like, do you really want to be eating that? So yeah. Anyway, thanks everybody for being on, and everybody have a good night or a good day. Angela says the biggest argument is the killing of animals. Well, that's another thing too. Absolutely. The ethics of telling people that they can keep eating the red meat, the processed meat, because it's not doing anything to their health. Ultimately, what it does is it contributes to more animals being killed unnecessarily. It contributes to more environmental destruction. It contributes to, all the kinds of things that we're trying to fight against. Global greenhouse gas emissions, warming, cutting down of the rainforests, all this kind of stuff. And these people do nothing but murky and, cloud up the water, or so to speak, around the discussion of these really important things. And they're basically just telling people like, look, not only is it not bad for you, but in the case of that lady, Georgia Edie, that I started with, she's literally telling people like, you have to do it. You have to eat animal fat for your brain health. I mean, it's like, I've been vegan for over 4 years. Like, I haven't had any animal fat. Like, should I be dead by now? Like, my brain isn't working? Like, anyway, it's just really, really upsetting. Like, these people are just nuts. I don't know. So, yeah, cool. Thanks, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. See you in the next one.